again, we are no longer a goods producing economy. Okay, we are slightly, but when it comes to service, we are now a service sector economy. Okay, a lot of our goods are now produced overseas because the labor is cheaper. Okay, and that's the dilemma. The idea that when it comes to business interests, okay, does it make more sense for them to keep their jobs here where they have to pay 15 or $10 an hour and have to pay overtime? Okay, or does it make more sense for them to send that labor overseas, pay $2 an hour, and not have to worry about overtime? Okay? And that's why a lot of jobs go overseas. They'll go to China. They'll go to India. Okay? They'll go to the Maldives. All of these areas that, again, the labor is very low in the sense of businesses, you know, increase their profits because of that dilemma. So again, competing on the world market with regards to American labor, it's going to be tougher because again, when it comes to livable wages, different parts of the world, their idea of a livable wage is very different than here in the United States. So we are now a services sector economy, very much based in that. Again, we still produce goods, but again, our goods production has gone overseas, as I said. And so our our sector in the economy is service. It provides healthcare, banking, and education. So again, this is the core of our economy as to, again, what we spend our money on, specifically to, again, address what our economy is foundational when it comes to, again, our services sector within the past several decades, really showing and demonstrating. So public interest. Okay, so public interest is one of those loaded words. Okay, depending on who you talk to, they're going to have a different notion as to what public interest is. Okay, but the definition simply stated, it's the best interest of the overall community rather than the narrow interest of a particular group. So again, very much a loaded word. Are what metrics are you looking at as to, again, what most or overall best interest of everyone? Again, that's very hard to collectively grasp because, there are so many nuances, and we are very unique and complex human beings that, again, you can't just, what, narrow interest and overall interest of the community are. So again, being able to absorb what that threat is, very, very, difficult at times. All right. So what types of interest groups exist? Okay. So these are some of the more famous ones. So you got the NRA, National Rifle Association, very much supportive of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. You've seen, where, if you've been astute to Boulder, they're going back and forth with regards to, different bickering between, Second Amendment, talking points both ways. So again, when incidents happen, you're always going to have this dialogue that does ensue after, right? One way or the other, one is going to understand or grasp what violence is, how close they are to the violence that ensued. That all plays a big role as well. And then when it comes to the AARP, okay, this is the most powerful, right, interest group. Okay, so it is the American Association of Retired People. Right, so when it comes to voting, right, the older folks vote like it is their religion. Okay, so AARP is very powerful. If you get the AARP's endorsement in different ways, very powerful because they do vote. Okay, they do vote when it comes to that. So yeah, Matt makes a good point. According to something I saw online, the NRA sued the state of Colorado over a ban on assault weapons back in 2018, and 8 days before the Boulder shooting, the ban was repealed. People are mad. So yes, I did read the same article. I was gonna bring it up, but again, I didn't know the specifics of it, so I didn't want to bring it up and say, "Oh yeah, I had read something." But being more specific again, that I also read something along those lines, where again, different ways in which again, legislation, laws, state, federal, all of these overarching, guidelines as to again how guns are purchased, what it takes to purchase them, very much, varying by state. But thank you, Matt. Good, very good point. And then you have the NFIB. So when it comes to small business, okay, NFIB looking after small business interests when it comes to policy, especially now. I mean, think about how small business has been completely decimated with regards to how the COVID-19 rollout. I mean, everything that happened with regards to outdoor dining, essential versus non-essential. But again, when it comes to jobs, I've seen many a family and friends that have been devastated because again, small business is overarching when it comes to again having the jobs that support local economies, that again provides the tax revenue that cleans the streets, that beautifies the city, makes more parks. It suffers as a result. So again, when it comes to small business being the heartbeat of America, it really is, because again, small business very much represents rural America. It's not very much in the sense of again different areas where small business is everywhere. It's not centralized to one region, is what I'm trying to say. And then IPAC, okay, very, very powerful in terms of foreign policy. Okay, so the American Israeli Political Action Committee, so very powerful in terms of receiving foreign aid for Israel. Okay, so the state of Israel specifically receiving a lot of funding because IPAC is very, very powerful in obtaining lobbyist dollars from foreign. And then you have the American Trial Lawyers Association. So if any of you are thinking about going to law school at any time, you might want to join the Trial Lawyers Association. Obviously you don't have to, but again, when you talk about after passing the bar and getting into practice, whether it be public or private, it's always incentivized to know and network in any employment that you undertake. And then you have economic interests. So when it comes to labor, you have education. Okay, so agriculture. Okay, so agriculture, we know that very well. A lot of different interests. So collectively, let's say, if you guys have read the bumper stickers, everybody has. My job depends on ag. Okay, gar packing. So again, you have different business interests in agriculture that speak to again the overall notion. So then you have business, chamber of commerce in any state or city. You're going to have the chamber of commerce that again speaks to the local business interests at hand. And then you have environmental interests. So you have the Audubon, but you also have the Sierra Club. You have different interests that again speak to renewable energy, wind, solar power. When it comes to again all the environmental interests that go along with, how environmentally friendly are you willing to go? Okay, because again, there's different notions as to how far one will sees the environment as something that is to be respected in some way, or whether it be to be utilized in the other. Okay, so there's always that happy medium as well. Equality interests. Okay, so when it comes to, let's say, Black Lives Matter, Chicano Latino Affairs Council, you have equality interests that again speak to different interest groups at hand. So also in those ways. So consumer and public interest lobbies. So any League of Women Voters. Okay, when it comes to any the idea of empowering women, okay, to speak to that majority that they have in society, okay, 51%. So again, looking to empower on that. Right. So what the health? So if we were actually in class, the physical classroom, I would have showed you a clips of What the Health. Okay, so What the Health is on Netflix, but what it is, it really does a good job of exposing the notions behind lobbies and interest groups that rear their ugly head behind what we deem as legitimate organizations. Okay, so for instance, here's a little depiction here. So you have the American Diabetes Association, the American Cancer Society, Susan G. Komen, breast cancer, and then you have the American Heart Association. Okay, so reputable by all society's understanding as to what reputable is. Well, those organizations and societies are, being partially funded by, interests that aren't always the most cancer friendly, heart friendly, breast cancer friendly, because of studies that have gone on with regards to eating too much of processed foods, meat-based products on a high daily basis. All these different notions that again go with what the idea behind funding of different organizations are. Okay, so as it's is there you have these different business interests that again aren't always the most health conscious. That are partially funding these associations, these societies. So again, knowing what that is. Okay, so again, seeing the lens behind the narrative. Okay, know that you don't bite the hand that feeds you. Okay, so you're not going to go against your entities that again are backing you financially. So oftentimes, as depicted in this documentary, you have recipes or different influences that are saying, hey, you should eat in moderation, XYZ that contains high amounts of meat-based products and things of that nature. And I say this from the fact that, again, I weighed over 300 pounds at one time. I'm not gonna bullshit you. And a lot of it had to do with high processed foods, the notion of being addicted to fast food. I was, and it came full circle in the sense that what, I understand that everything in moderation is okay, and I completely agree with that. But again, when it comes to what the notion of health, everybody has a different level of health consciousness. Okay? And again, I'm not, one to preach about anything, but just knowing that, again, what it does specifically to your mind, body, and soul when, again, you are at one at peace with yourself. You're not, consuming on a daily basis a lot of, high processed foods that, again, are just, at times just not the best for you and digestively as well. So Jack, okay, so Mr. Espinoza, go for it. I have a question. These associations are private or federal? So they are public entities. So specifically, they are entities where they are looking for a special cause. Okay, so they are interest groups looking for a special cause that influence policy. Okay, so when you're looking at these associations and societies, society looks at them as reputable. So again, they are reputable. I'm not saying they're not, but their narrative is influenced by these corporations because, like I said, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. Okay, so again, the notion of going after some of these culprits that give high blood pressure, high cholesterol levels, all these things that go along with bad diets. So again, speaking to what they are, they're very much entities that are funded by private entities, and also receive federal funding by the federal government. So yeah, to answer your question, Jack, they are funded by private entities at times, but they also receive federal assistance and aid. All right. So when it comes to interest group strategies, okay, so what do I mean by strategy? So interest groups, they have different techniques as to how they're going to influence policy. Okay, so again, depending on who they're trying to influence, very much obviously is going to impact how they're going to approach the person, because you have to know what the individual you're trying to influence thinks about the subject that you're trying to influence them on. Okay, so based on that, you have direct and indirect techniques. Okay, so direct is where you're directly interacting with government officials to further group goals. Okay, so oftentimes the interest group may have the ability to speak directly to a government official because they have that access. Okay, however, indirect technique is where you are utilizing a third party, okay, to influence a government official. Okay, so oftentimes you're using a lobbyist to influence that person, because again, that lobbyist may know the particulars of that politician, what they feel, what they believe. So again, that technique definitely varies by, again, that individual they're looking at. So I kind of have the left and right Twix there. So Democrats versus Republican, it's kind of like that. Actually, it's exactly like that. So again, very much influenced by the same corporations, because corporations know that if you're influencing both parties, you'll never lose. Okay, you'll never lose. Okay, the idea, when you have that notion that, again, regardless of who wins, they win because they're given to both parties. A lot of times we don't have that access or those resources to do so. So again, when it comes to a lot of these interest groups and lobbies, they carry a lot of influence because they give to both parties' reelection campaigns. All right. So this is just for shits and giggles, the meme here. So Congress should wear jackets like NASCAR drivers. Okay, so we know who bought them. Okay, because again, like I said, they're all influenced by these different corporate entities. I'd like a little bit more transparency in that way. Okay, regardless of where they're at, they gotta have their jackets on. I'd want to know who's buying and paying for Chuck Schumer or Matt Gaetz or Ron DeSantis or Gavin Newsom. I'd want to know all those things. So again, why not make it to where politicians would have to wear jackets like NASCAR drivers? Because again, you'd want to know, hey, who's giving them money, Pepsi or Coke? I don't know. All right. So political parties in the United States. So specifically, we're going to be talking about a little bit of history, going into how the collective come together in the party building process in our history, in our nation's history. So specifically speaking, independent voters, it's a voter or candidate who does not identify with a political party. So believe it or not, a large swath of the population is an independent voter. Okay, the media, meaning both the Democrats and Republicans, they don't want you to know that because again, they want you to pick a side and stick with it. Most voters are independent voters. Okay, in the sense of, again, it depends on circumstance. Okay, which speaks to the level of what I feel is pragmatism based on the independent voter. Okay, the idea that there are certain situations that call for different policies. It's not just, one way or the highway. You know what I'm saying? And so again, knowing what that is, having a pragmatic view when those situations come up, I think is more in line with the understanding of rationalism than having cheer for this side, cheer for this side. No, there's room for independent thinking in terms of what policy calls for. Party organization. So all political parties, obviously when it comes to the bigger ones, the Democrats and Republicans, they have a party organization that is, it's a juggernaut in the sense of, again, it speaks to the level of party leadership, those individuals that have been, very loyal to the party brand. But it is the formal structure and leadership of the political party. Okay, so this includes election committees, local, state, and national executives, and paid professional staff. Okay. So the National Convention. So this was just held this past year in 2020, where both the Democrats and Republicans held their national convention. So it always happens during a presidential year, specifically where presidential and vice presidential candidates are chosen to represent the party. A platform is written, okay, based on, again, what policies that party calls for, okay. Choosing a national committee. So what committee is going to be conducting business moving forward. And specifically, again, where party bosses are calling the shots. Okay, what is going to be acceptable to the party narrative and what's not going to be acceptable to the party. So what is a party platform? It basically outlines the policies, positions, and principles of the party. Okay, so again, based on, let's say, energy as a whole or green energy. Okay, so again, the dynamic is, based on, how one feels about the environment, how one feels about fossil fuels, all is going to come into that notion as to, again, whether climate change is believed in your political socialization or whether it's not believed in your political socialization. So again, the dynamic behind that, all that goes into, again, how a party is going to stand for these different issues. Okay? So again, not only that, but again, immigration, a whole list of issues with regards to women's rights, LGBTQ rights, morality, how, the idea of pro-choice, pro-life, all these things that go into, again, what a party stands for. All right, so what are the parties? So these are the emblems of the parties that have been around. On with Lunacy was the little owl one there. So, but again, speaking to different parties that have or had existed in our nation's history. All right, so political parties, so national committee. So when you're talking about what a national committee does, okay, so again, they're chosen at the national convention. They're a standing committee of national political party established to direct and coordinate party activities between party conventions. Okay, so meaning fulfilling that gap in between. Okay, what's going to be the party line? Okay, so elections happen. Democrats and Republicans, they got to go back to the drawing board. Okay, were they successful? Were they unsuccessful? What did they do right? What did they do wrong? All of these things are assessed by the national committee. Okay, they are conducting and coordinating between elections because, again, they have to see how their message is being received by the overall public. Okay, so again, they're assessing these different things as the party business is being conducted in the middle of those conventions. State Central Committee, this is the principal organized structure of each political party within each state. Okay, so again, how big or small the State Central Committee is very much depends on how strong that party is in that state. Okay, so let's say California is known as a progressive state. Okay, so has the favor in regards to state politics. Same thing with Texas, but on the Republican side, where very much conservative politics and policies reign supreme. So again, different dynamics based on different state politics. Okay, so again, how well is that party doing, or how unsuccessful they've been? So let's say the Democrats in Texas or the Republicans in California. Okay, how or what their message is being absorbed with in that population, and again, the dynamic that goes into the region, what industry influences politics in that area. All of that is going to play a huge role in that dynamic. Who's funding the jobs in that area? Okay, is it green energy jobs? Is it agriculture? Is it coal? All these dynamics that go into what a specific area is going to speak. So this is, again, at each state. So they're responsible for carrying out policy decisions of the party's state convention. Okay, so again, policy decisions, what is going to be acceptable in terms of the platform. Again, assessing what did they do right, what did they do wrong, and again, looking to put that in context. Same idea with when it came to the notion of patronage, when it comes to picking a cabinet. Okay, so let's say with regards to a president, when they are choosing the heads of the executive branches, the executive departments that make up the cabinet. Okay, so it's specifically rewarding faithful party workers and followers with government employment and contracts. Okay, so it works the same way in party politics, in the sense that if you've helped people win a lot of elections, so if you're a Republican or a Democrat and you've been working hard for that party to win elections, people know you, it's the same idea. They're going to give you higher positions once they become available. Okay? And that's the same way each party works, that again, the individuals working within them, the more elections they've put in, the more time in elections they put in with regards to success, they are rewarded in that way. All right. So divided government. Okay. So we have a very different circumstance. We have a divided government, but partially in the sense that it's everything is controlled by the Democrats right now, but only in the sense that the 50-50 tie is broken by the vice president. So when it comes to divided government in the federal sense, it's not really divided. Okay, that's why a lot of the reason why the COVID-19 bill, when it came to the 1.9 trillion stimulus, was even able to pass. Okay, so it's a situation in which one major political party controls the presidency and the other controls the Congress. Okay, or when one party controls the state governorship and the other controls the state legislature. So again, the dynamic between how the executive and the legislative in those jurisdictions and how they're interacting. All right, so ticket splitting. So when you are ticket splitting, you are not voting straight ticket. Okay, ticket splitting is when you are actually voting for members of different parties. Okay, so as for instance, it's voting for candidates of two or more parties for different offices. Okay, so for example, a voter splits their ticket if they vote for a Republican presidential candidate and for a Democratic congressional candidate. So ticket splitting, it's very much a dying idea. Okay, so a lot of the times when individuals are motivated to vote, even though they're independent, they are voting a straight ticket. Okay, they're not ticket splitting. Again, ticket splitting, thinking that, again, you're not really looking at party, you're looking more at substance of the candidate themselves. Okay, straight ticket voting is voting straight for the party that is indicative of your beliefs. So regardless of who they are, if they have an R or a D by their name, you're going to vote for them. And I'll go over that term here in a few slides. So how did the political party system start? Okay, so this is a grid that shows how political parties developed and what political parties stood for during their eras. Okay, so as you can see, George Washington, he was middle of the man, middle of the road, and there is a quick write about him at the end of class today. But when it comes to George Washington, like I said, he did not identify with the political party. Okay, so then you had John Adams, who was a Federalist, and then you have the dynamic where Democratic Republicans, up until James Monroe, are elected. Okay, so again, this was the dynamic between the Democratic Republicans and the Federalists. Okay, so you see that dynamic. So James Monroe, he was right there in the middle there, started the era of good feelings. But then you have this craziness. Okay, so don't let it spook you out. Again, this is just where parties would branch off of each other based on, again, belief system during that era. Okay, so let's say the anti-Masonic Party, okay, ran for president during the Andrew Jackson era. So again, on the bottom is indicating the date, year of the election, and then again, the parties indicated are right there during and indicated with what candidate represented them. Okay. So and then you had the Know Nothing parties. You had the Bull Moose Party that'll be coming up here in a few. So again, when it comes to how political parties developed, very much branching off of each other. So during these times, again, splitting what ideas came from where. So the identity of our country still developing in different ways. Then the interesting part here. Okay, so this is where, again, indicating where you see a split between how Republicans and Democrats, you see a flip. Okay, and it happened during the 1872 election. Okay, so Lincoln was a Republican. Okay, would he be a Republican in today's standards? I don't know. Okay, but there is a circumstance where in 1872 you see a flip of where the ideas of where liberal Democrats and Republicans kind of see a nuance where things start to kind of convolute. Okay? And after that, you see where a huge election controversy, like I stated earlier in the presidency chapter, with Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel Tilden. Okay, so there's a lot of chaos that's going on during this period of time that, again, speaking for what a political party was before Abraham Lincoln and what it was, after the Civil War and so forth. So again, doing one's due diligence in terms of history, it's up for debate, and it still very much is up for debate. Okay? If Lincoln would have been a Republican, as what a Republican is today, or would he be a Democrat in what it's defined as today? So, all right. So, what specifically makes us unique, again, as a democracy and having only a two-party system? Okay, so like I said in chapter 1, we are very much in the minority. Okay, having a two-party system in a democracy as large as ours. Okay, so it's a political system in which only two parties have a reasonable chance of any given election. Okay, so I'll show you the different parties, like I said, and I'll give you reasons as to why not only Smith, Shelley, and Bart's, but what I believe as to why third parties are not given as much viability as they should. So the Democratic Party, it was one of the two major political parties evolving out of the Republican Party of Thomas Jefferson. Okay, so again, those nuances in history where, again, parties are evolving, They're forming new identities throughout the years based on, let's say, economic collapse, based on the idea of slavery, all these things that start, taking shape as to, again, what parties stand for. So what about the Whig Party? So this is a major political party during the first half of the 19th century. Okay, so it was formally established in 1836. It was very much anti-Jackson and advocated spending on infrastructure. Okay, so anti-Jackson in the sense that Jackson was very much a foe of federal government in terms of control. So very much along the lines of a strong central government, but having its different nuance to that. So the Republican Party, one of the two major political parties, it emerged in the 1850s as an anti-slavery party and consisted of former Northern Whigs and anti-slavery Democrats. Okay, so again, evolving out of those different nuances as to, again, how Jim Crow ended up playing out, all those different things that, again, speak to how parties developed. All right. So history of political parties, whenever you hear the term GOP, it refers to the Republican Party. Okay, so it refers to the term Grand Old Party. Okay, so GOP, whenever you hear that, it is also AKA the Republican Party. Realignment. Okay, so realignment, this is a large lasting change in the types of voters who support each of the major political parties. Right? So realignment can happen based on, let's say, an issue that comes about. Okay, so let's say COVID-19. Okay, let's take this for instance. So, there are people, you as a younger generation, me as a millennial, and then the baby boomers. We all have different types of feelings towards certain issues. Okay, because again, political socialization, what era we grew up in, the influence of events during that time period, who were the presidents during our times when we were growing up. All these things that play a role in lasting change as to, again, how we feel about politics. Okay, so let's say something like COVID-19. Okay, comes about, and we all have a different opinion about it. Okay, obviously singularly as an individual, but collectively as a generation. Okay, what does it mean? How are we internalizing it? So, what was the government's response? So how do we feel about the government's response? Okay, based on closures or mask mandates, all these different things that, again, speak to how us individually and us as a generation are thinking or supporting or not supporting parties over others. Okay, so again, that dynamic that goes along with how incidents in human history, okay, especially COVID-19, are again causing that realignment, okay, where there's a reevaluation of politics. Is it right? Is it wrong? Again, we all have an opinion about what's going on. All these incidents that happen, that we are, definitely influenced by. So we got our little parties there. Obviously, the Democrats and Republicans all looking to get their individuals elected. Party on. All right. So why has the two-party system endured? Okay. So like I said, we are in the minority for democracies in the world. So plurality. So this is one of the reasons. So when it comes to plurality, it's a number of votes cast for a candidate that is greater than the number of votes for any other candidate, but not necessarily a majority. So again, when it comes to what plurality is, it also speaks to, the idea of the electoral college. Okay, how I said, when it comes to electors that make up the electoral college, okay, they are very much party hacks. Okay, every one of them has, is party boss or has, helped their party gain an advantage. they're never gonna, if a situation comes about where a third party becomes viable, they're not gonna turncoat on their party that was loyal to them. Okay, it's ingrained in the system that, again, now these electors by generation are very much ingrained in party politics, okay, in the two-party system. So it'll never change in that dynamic because it's very much ingrained in the party politics of the electors that make that call. And then you have, when it comes to unit rule, okay, the all or nothing. So unit rule is a rule by which all the state's electoral votes are cast for the presidential candidate who receives of a plurality in that state. So like I said, with the electoral college map, when I showed it to you, okay, the all or nothing, okay, the notion that it doesn't matter if you win by one vote or several million votes, okay, all you're going to get are the electoral votes that were awarded to that state, okay, from that state. Another little meme there. So diapers and politicians should be changed often, both for the same reason. Okay, so term limits, yes, please. So in the sense that, again, sometimes politicians aren't true to their word. Who knew? I didn't know. Some of them were full of shit. Who knew? I didn't know that. But on to the next slide. So difficulty of third-party viability. Okay, so again, as I said earlier, there's a concerted effort to keep any type of threat to the two-party system. Okay, the status quo that goes along with the two-party system. Okay, I refer to them as the guardrails. Okay, the Democrats and Republicans on the progressive and conservative side are that guardrail. Okay, anything that is in between is okay dialogue. Okay, when you start talking on the extremes, okay, when you start talking, let's say, reactionism on the right or socialism on the left, okay, you have the Democrats and Republicans that are trying to keep those dynamics from ever forming. Okay, because again, they're guardrails. Okay? You want to keep a certain frame of narrative that's acceptable. So many constraints exist that keep third-party platforms from gaining momentum politically. Okay, so what are they? Okay, so difficulty gaining ballot access in all 50 states. Okay, so different states, again, hold different election laws with regards to how candidates are even able to be on the ballot. Okay, so this causes a huge problem for third parties, specifically the Libertarians and the Green Party, okay? Because, again, this dynamic doesn't allow them to actually be on the ballot in all 50 states because of a percentage threshold that they had to have had in the previous election, okay? And a lot of these parties, Libertarians, they're lucky if they get 8% or 6% or 4%. And Green Party, they're lucky if they get 2%. Okay, but again, you're looking at different ideas that again speak to how society has a dynamic that wants to, at least have that as an option. But again, when you have these notions of how third-party ideas are suppressed, it goes along with limited mainstream media exposure as well. Okay, so again, media playing that guardrail, okay, in the sense that they love status quo. Okay, every election cycle, they can guarantee a lot of money from the Democrats and Republicans because they have to buy commercials, they have to produce the commercials, they got to buy airtime. It makes the media a lot of money. Okay, they like status quo. They don't want any third party that's going to kind of mess with that idea, notion that, again, every 2 and 4 years, media is making buku bucks because billions of dollars are spent on elections during those election cycles. Okay? All right. So why else has the two-party system endured? Okay, so there have been splinter parties. So like I showed you with the dynamic with the flowchart of the different elections, there have been splinter parties in the past. Okay, a party formed from the dissident faction within a major political party. Okay, so that has happened, but again, sustaining that splinter off of that major political party doesn't happen very often. Okay. So the most recent have been after 2008, both the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street emerge. Okay? So the notion of the Great Recession, okay, they had two sides, okay, two sides that blamed a specific entity for the crash. Okay, so you had the Tea Party on the right that blamed government. Okay, inefficiency in government, government overspending, all of that. Okay, then you had Occupy Wall Street. Okay, on the left that was blaming corporations, corporate power, specifically banking industries that had caused this situation to occur. Okay, so both of them should have brought those two ideas together because corporations are lobbied to on behalf of corporations to do things within government, and government reciprocates that. So again, it's one of those things where they should have brought those two ideas together instead of separating them. Okay, because again, they're not mutually exclusive. They're both interacting in that way where, again, they're causing certain policies to happen as they did in 2008. Okay? So party identification. So it's very strong right now in the sense that, a lot of the fragmentation, independent thinking. Yeah, there's a lot of independent thinking, but when it comes to party identification and when one is actually motivated to vote, it's usually in a strong fashion in the sense that you're usually only voting straight ticket. Okay, you're voting for the candidates of only one party. But again, you don't need to do that. So again, split ticket voting, that's a thing too. You don't need to vote just for one party along one line. You do have that ability. So I got the little memes there. Kanye in the house, when it comes to his either righteous or unrighteous reasons to having run for president. But I got a kick out of his tweet right when he lost. He put "whelp." I was like, oh, all right, yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense. But Kanye in the house. Thank God it never became a reality television show. Yeah. Too much power for too long. So again, reiterating that idea that again, our leaders in Congress spend a lot of time with those party politics and become party hacks themselves. Okay, they become tools of the party to maneuver and do the bidding of the party rather than, again, the bidding of the citizenry. Okay? Because again, that oftentimes is overlooked. 106 members have been in Congress for over 20 years. Okay, so again, long time. Okay, so my quick write for this week. Okay, so I figured I wouldn't keep you all here for very long in the sense that it was going to be a shorter chapter this week in that way. So what do I mean by the quick write for this week? Okay, so to party or not to party? Okay, that is the question. Okay, not party as in, party, but again, to party to become one with a group of people. Okay, so there are pros and cons to party. Okay, so the pros, okay, you have like-minded individuals, okay? Like-minded individuals that share the same belief system as you, or at least some, in the sense that, you can dialogue with what they feel is important or a way to move in a different direction, okay, with regards to how, the collective feels. Okay? You got pooling of resources. Okay, obviously you have more people, you're going to have more resources, a bigger network of those like-minded individuals. And then you're going to be able to coalition build. Okay, the bigger you get, the more organizations who support you, whether it be something like, let's say, NRA, Planned Parenthood, Sierra Club, all of these, again, coalitions that exist. That again, when you're building these organizational, networks, you're making your party stronger. And then you got team player skills. Okay, the idea that again, it's a team sport. It's team player skills. The idea that if a member in your party does well, everybody does well. okay, in the sense that it's reflective of, again, kind of a team player, team sport. We're in it together kind of a thing. So those are the pros to party. Okay. So what are the cons to party? Okay. So what are the negatives? Okay. So you have party conflict battles. Okay. The idea of the notion, again, us versus them. The notion that there is going to be conflict because you are different thinking than me. Okay. So you're going to kind of come up with that dimension, that dichotomy that, stalled legislative agendas tend to follow. Okay. In the sense that when you have this us versus them mentality, you end up stalling different legislative agendas in different way, whether right or wrong, in the sense that, again, this us versus them mentality kind of evokes that competitive spirit in the sense that I don't care, as long as they lose. Okay. Kind of a thing. So possible loyalty conflicts. Okay, so that's a big con. Okay, in the sense that, are you being loyal to your party, or are you being loyal to your constituents? Okay, those citizens that voted you in. And again, that can be a conflict, because when it comes to party politics, when you get real deep in that party politics, it's going to come down to, again, whether it's acceptable to party more so than it is acceptable to your constituents, because the party is going to designate whether you get those high party positions, those commissionerships or committee persons that come up, that big positions that come up. The idea that if you don't vote in that certain way or feel that certain way, they're going to make your life miserable. Okay. So George Washington, as I've alluded to, no friend of political parties. He was quoted as saying in 1796, political parties are likely to be potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government. Okay, so very much a skeptic of what party politics produce in the political arena. Okay? Also, the common mischiefs of the spirit of party are sufficient to make it the interest and duty of a wise person to discourage and restrain it. So it's George Washington. So I ask in this quick right, do you believe or agree with the nature of political parties and what they produce in the political arena? Okay, so again, weighing those pros and cons that I have on that last page and internalizing them in your own belief. Okay, again, we're all politically socialized very differently. Okay, so again, when you have these notions of how we feel, the notions that go along with that, okay, do you believe or agree with the nature of parties and what they produce in the political? Okay. Number two, does the current constitutional crisis with regard to party politics speak to that belief? Okay, so what do I mean by constitutional crisis? Okay, so right now, again, our fragmented politics are at an all-time high. Okay, so when you're talking about the notion of the constitutional crisis with regards to everything internalized the past 2 years. Okay, so everything, let's say, with regards to the first impeachment, the second impeachment, the party politics that go along with now Joe Biden taking the reins, all these things that go along with fragmented politics as it exists. You can possibly bring in the filibuster, okay, because again, that is looking to be removed. Okay, there's a lot of dialogue right now of people that are for or against it in different ways. So again, a lot of different notions that go along with that constitutional crisis as well. If that's taken out or left in, very political, okay? Because again, those agendas, are they going to be stalled, okay? Based on, again, the majority, a simple majority, or is it going to be something specifically different? So again, internalize all of those different notions that go into party politics. And again, weigh those pros and cons on your own belief system. Okay. Pros and cons. Do you believe, again, what do you think is the true reality in society? Okay, what does it produce? Is it positive or negative in your view? And what do you believe that goes along with those notions? All right. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, or issues that with regards to the quick write, maybe with regards to the video writing assignment? Anybody have any questions? No, can't believe it. Can't believe it. So again, this next week, make sure you are focusing on the video writing assignment. So like I said, this quick write isn't going to be due until after we come back from spring break. Okay, so as I've indicated on Canvas, it's not due till April 6th. Okay, so I want you to focus all your attention on the video writing assignment. Okay, so over the break, whatever it may be, in the sense of not just this week, but also next week, because like I said, next week we will not be meeting, okay, because it is spring break. So next week, like I said, we won't be meeting, but we will come back on April 6th and start up with chapter 8. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns, or issues? Can't believe it. Can't believe it. All right. Have a great rest of the week. Have a great spring break. Be safe. Come back healthy, happy, and I'll see everyone April 6th. Peace.